Hey terrainiacs, Mel the Terrain Tutor back in the studio and back with another Terrain Lab video for you. And if you don't know what the Terrain Labs are, it's where we take common materials and techniques that are banded around the sort of wargame terrain making world and the hobby world. Yeah, and we put them under a barrage of tests to properly get a handle on the material and figure out, you know, what works and what doesn't work. Now we've done a barrage of these videos and you can check the other videos out in the Terrain Lab what you call it playlist. Yeah, but this Terrain Lab, what we're going to be looking at is acrylic filler and caulking. Okay, now this is the decorators stuff that they use for filling gaps and that sort of stuff. It's an acrylic base, yeah, so it's much like a paint and that sort of stuff, but it's got sort of a thick gel medium in it. Okay, now it's designed to dry quickly, you can texture it, it's designed to be flexible, and it's used a lot in making wargame mats, rollout mats. You can see where we're going with this, can't you? Okay, but before we can do any of that, we need to get a proper handle on what it does, what it can work, and what, you know, all those sort of things. So I think the best thing to do, yeah, is come over to the bench and I'm going to show you what we're going to be doing. Come on. Right guys, there's a various mix of things that I want to do with this acrylic filler. Now I've got it in my filler gun. Yeah, I've taken the nozzle off, yeah, just so we can get it out in a bulk, so to speak. Yeah, make it easier. Yeah, I've got my little spatula. There's basically three types of tests. I want to see how it warps. Okay, so if we put it on materials, you know, what does it do to those materials? Does it warp them as it dries? Okay, on top of that I want to mix it with various things such as paint, PVA, grit, all different sorts of things, yeah, to see what that does to the mix. And then finally, yeah, once we've got pieces that are set, I want to have a look at how well they take paint and glue and that sort of stuff. But the first test we're going to look at, yeah, is the warping one. Yeah, now right here I've got my control, yeah, which is a bit of EPVC. Yeah, and this is going to be a control all the way through, and it lets me just show you. On top of that, I've got a few different materials. We've got cloth, you know where that's going. We've got cardboard, yeah, a nice little thin bit. Cereal packet, I think. We've got plasticard, EPVC, yeah, and foam board. So, my next job is basically to get my gun, yeah, squeeze a blob out, and then use my spatula, yeah, to sort of spread it out and get a feel for it. Now it's quite thick, okay, as it goes down. Yeah, it's definitely got a decent bulk to it, if you know what I mean. So if I bring it up like that, yeah, it does spread. It is sticking to the spatula, but you're supposed to be able to shape it with a wet tool. Okay, so if I pop it up like that and I stipple it, yeah, so we've got all those nice little spikes. If I come along with, let me just wet it. Oh God, don't fall off your chair, boss. Yeah, with some horrible dirty water, we should be able to smooth that out. And yeah, it does. Yeah. Yeah, a little bit of water on it and you can start manipulating, which is good. Yeah, because it means we can start cleaning up. It's quite messy stuff, isn't it? Yeah, so there you go. Okay, so that's my control, and I just want to have a quick little play with that and just see how it goes. So we'll leave that side stippled. Ah, my whole thing's wet. I did a lot. Right, we'll leave that like that. Okay, right, next job is I'm going to do exactly the same on all of these. So I'm just going to squirt these out and then we'll come back once they're done, guys, okay? So I'll see you shortly. Right, we've got these all gooped up now, yeah, and they've all had one trigger squeeze, yeah, and they're all the same length materials, etc. So it's not exactly scientific, but it's pretty damn close, you know what I mean? We've got material, card, plastic card, EPVC, foam board, and I threw a piece of MDF in there as well. Yeah, and what we need to do, and the only thing we're interested in with all of these is, does it warp these materials as it cures? Now, this stuff should be dry in about 2 hours. That's when they reckon, according to the instructions, it's ready for painting. Personally, I'm going to leave these sort of 24, maybe 48 hours, yeah, to fully cure, so we can get a handle on the warping factor. Okay, so although it's going to be in the future, we'll skip to the results, and then in the meantime I'm going to do the next test and that'll come after the results. So here are the results on the warping. Okay guys, the warping test results are in. These are dry. It's been at least 24 hours. It's been a little bit longer. Now, looking at them straight from the top, yeah, we've got a little bit of sort of crinkling and warping with the material. I don't know if material can warp, do you know what I mean? But you know what I mean. Yeah, we've got a very slight amount with the cardboard. Yeah, not so much horizontally, but sort of width-wise. Yeah, if you see that. But moving on to the others, tiny little bit on there, tiny little bit. You tend to find, yeah, with things like foam board, yeah, having a thickness between your top layer and your bottom layer can exaggerate the warping. Yeah, so if this was thinner foam board, it wouldn't actually warp as much. Yeah, it's sort of like the thickness works as a lever when it's sort of levering itself up, if you know what I mean. Okay, but even so, that's a tiny amount, and these strips are cut to warp. You know, if anything was to warp, these strips would cut because they are nice and long and thin. Yeah, they are more than twice longer than they are wider, and that's the sort of like key point for warping. When something's twice as long as it is wide, that's when you'll start to get warping issues. If you keep it within that sort of ratio, it's not a problem, which is why we went for a 4:1 ratio with these. Yeah, so we'd see how well they warped. Okay, so overall, really impressed. Yeah, texture's pretty good. It's soft underneath. Yeah, I can literally push my finger into it. So I don't know how it would fit as an ongoing basing material if it was applied too thickly. I mean, where it's relatively thin, yeah, it's set rock solid, and you know, essentially that's what it's supposed to do anyway. But above all, the really interesting thing about this, okay, and what I really like about it, I've got a bit of contamination, a bit of flock on it from the table. Studio woes, eh? Is you got it like that. Yeah. Not a single crack. Not one. Yeah, yeah, it's keeping its texture. Yeah, this is why it's used for these acrylic boards, for these battle mats. That's really interesting, I like that. Okay, so we'll be having more of a play with acrylic. I'm not sure about a basing material yet. Yes, it will work as a basing material. Yeah, but there's other basing materials, you know, we got a terrain loop and that sort of stuff. Yeah, and there's other stuff you can mess with, but that is a real bonus to this acrylic caulking, you know, this acrylic filler, the fact that it is flexible, it doesn't crack. Do you know what? You could make roads and stuff out of that, couldn't you? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I think you know what I mean. Right, so that's the warping test done. Pass with flying colours. If anything was to warp, I would expect the cardboard to warp, to be perfectly honest, and it did, you know. But the rest are perfectly fine. Right, let's move on to our mixing tests. Right guys, the next barrage of tests that I want to do with it is mixing it, okay, and that means mixing it with various common sort of things that we use in terrain building to see what it does to it and whether it, you know, changes the application. This is very much it might not do nothing, or we might find something wonderful, yeah, but we're not going to know until we've done it. Yeah, so the plan is I am going to mix this with paint, with filler, with grit, with PVA and with water. Okay, and the way I'm going to do that is quite simple. I'm going to mix it roughly 1/3, whatever each one of these is, and 2/3 acrylic, because obviously ratios matter, yeah, but I just want to get a basic idea. If we come across something really good, we can drill down with different ratios then, but just for this experiment, yeah, 2/3 acrylic filler, yeah, 1/3 paint, filler, grit, PVA or water, and let's see how they pan out, yeah. So I'm going to be mixing them up in these, yeah. I'll mix them up, I'll apply them, and then we'll come back to it much like we have done before, because you don't need to watch me mixing acrylic filler, do you? Really? Alright, I'm going to crack on, and I'll come back with the results after the swishy thing. See you in a sec. Right, so that's all those applied, okay. As I said, we've gone for 1/3 of whatever we were mixing it with to 2/3 acrylic filler. Yeah, and if I go for the water, oh, someone's after me. Yeah, this watered down really, really quickly. Okay, it was a bit of a, you know, it's gone to very much a thick soup almost. Okay, it has set, it is sitting, it's still slow in move, sort of there's a little bit of movement, but I can see that it's setting. Now this is interesting because mixing it with water obviously means that I can apply it with a brush, okay, rather than a spatula. So I'm quite interested in seeing how that pans out. When we mixed it with PVA, it was a struggle to actually mix, but it did mix eventually. And if you notice, yeah, what we've got is it's holding the thickness and some of the peaks, but they're not really sharp. Okay, now I'm interested to see how this pans out, and we'll see how this dries and whether there's any sort of benefit of mixing it with PVA. Yeah, I'm not sure just quite yet. Okay, now the grit was interesting. This really thickened it up and sort of, you know, made it a lot tougher and thicker. Yeah, as you would expect. Now the interesting thing is there's some really sharp peaks on there from the stippling. Yeah, so we'll have to see how well it holds that and whether that texture carries through and it dries with a better texture once some of the moisture that's in it has cured. Now I'm assuming it's moisture that's in it. Someone in the comments correct me on that one. Yeah, with the filler, yeah, toughened it up a little bit more. We've got some very nice lines on there. Okay, so this is going to be a suck it and see one. Let's see what that does to it. It could be something, it could be nothing. We'll find out. Yeah. Now with the acrylic paint, that mixed really well with it. Okay, really well. I don't think you even need a third to be able to tint it. Obviously, it's made it a little bit more sloppy, and that's because of the liquid in the paint. Yeah. Let's see how it dries, let's see if it cracks and all that sort of stuff, or if there's colour changes, or how it works with paint, whether it will give us a nice even colour at the end, or whether it will do something, you know. It's quite possible. We're not going to know until we've done it. So, that's those tests done. Yeah, next thing we need to do is just let them dry, and we'll come back once they're dry. See you shortly. Right, results of the mixing test. These are all dry now. Okay, we've got our control over here, then we've got it mixed with water, with PVA, with grit, with paint and with filler. So our control, pretty sturdy but still soft underneath, holding the details well. Now, when you mix it with water, okay, you get this. Okay, it's quite hard, and I think that's because it's really thin. Yeah, it's very smooth. Obviously it didn't hold any details because it lost that sort of its viscosity, its thickness, you know what I mean? Yeah, I'm not sure. It's interesting. Okay, I'm not sure what the application, unless I was trying to do some sort of mud flats or something like that. I'm not sure what the application of that would be, to be perfectly honest, guys. But it does go down a lot harder. Okay, mixing it with PVA has resulted in what I would call a softer mix. Still got the details, but I mean, you can see that. And even on these sort of edges, it's still softer. Yeah. So it can mix with PVA. I don't know why we'd mix PVA into it based on these results. If it turned it into rock hard or something like that, then I could understand. Yeah, but based on what it's done, yeah, there's no point in mixing PVA that I can see. Okay. Now moving on, we've got grit. Okay, look at the texture on that. That's really held, and it's rock hard. Yeah, it is still soft in the very sort of thickest areas, so if it was applied thinner, yeah, like it is here, it would be rock hard. Now, I'm quite curious. Okay, you know when we looked at the warping tests and we looked at the material, okay, I'm quite curious as to whether this is flexible with the, with the grit into it. So, can we peel it off? We can peel it off. It's a bit messy. Don't need to do that. You see how it is? It's not completely cured underneath. But it does move back and it's not snapping. You know what I mean? That might be worthy of further exploration. Yeah, I can't really... I was hoping it'd peel off like a sheet, but I don't think it's going to. But I really do like that texture. Okay. Moving on, we've got it with paint. Now the idea of mixing it with paint was to see what it does and whether we can sort of tint it as a base colour. Yeah, it is a little bit softer where it's more thickly applied. Yeah, these white bits are from transferring off that, guys. Yeah, so we did have a solid colour before I started messing with it. It's very much like with the PVA, where it stayed softer, you know, where the PVA is. It doesn't seem to be cracking. It's keeping that flexibility. and the colour's gone all the way through. Oh, am I going to be able to do this? I don't know, I'm not going to be able to do that. So, you can tint it. We could put some grit in it. So you can use it and tint it as a base colour. A lot of these experiments I'm looking at and I'm considering with regards to doing canvas battle mats. And that's my main consideration. I think based on the results I've seen so far, we've sort of ruled it out as a general sort of base texturer. Yeah, filler's cheaper and better in my opinion than this. But with regards to material and making rollout battle mats and stuff like that, that's another win. Okay, that's a big win. Right, finally, filler. Talking about my favourite subject. Yeah, mixing it with filler or spackle as you guys stateside call it. Yeah, really, really sharp detail. Very firm, a lot firmer. It's still a little bit flexible in places, just slightly, but a lot tougher, you know what I mean? I could see that working as a basing texture. But the question is, why would you mix it in acrylic caulking and filler when you could just do it with filler? Where would the what benefit does the acrylic caulking bring to the mix? Do you know what I mean? Right, see if we can peel this off. Does it peel? No, this breaks. So yeah, by mixing in the filler, what we've done is we've essentially got rid of that elasticity. So it's a lot firmer, but we've lost the flexibility, which is what you'd expect, to be perfectly honest. Yeah. Overall, interesting results. I do like that texture. I do like the fact that it mixes well with acrylic colours. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, it really does firm it up. But like I say, it becomes an issue of, well, why wouldn't you just, stick with the filler in the first place? Okay, right, there's only one sort of set of tests that I want to do on it now, okay, and that's, I want to have a look at how well things stick to it, so can we glue down onto acrylic caulking, onto acrylic filler? Yeah, so let's get set up for that, eh? See you in a sec. Okay guys, we've looked at, the warping factor of acrylic filler. We've also looked at mixing things in with it. Now the last thing I want to check is putting stuff on top of it. Okay, and so I've got three basic control pieces here. Not control pieces, test pieces. Okay, they're already cured. I did them, earlier. And so they're ready for sort of gluing and painting and that sort of stuff. Now we've got this one. Yeah, and I'm going to put hot glue on this side and super glue on this side. This one I'm going to use for PVA and grit to see how well PVA and grit sticks down to it. Okay, and this one is just for quite simple emulsion paint. I'm figuring if emulsion goes down, then acrylics will. And I know that acrylic mixes with it pretty well. Now I'm going to glue these sort of off camera and I'll bring the results back once they're all dry. Yeah, in my comments. But before we do, I just want to sort of do the paint on it while we're here, because I can we're more interested in how well the paint goes down onto it, to be perfectly honest, if you know what I mean. Yeah, and so let's have a nose. Yeah, so simple brown. Yeah. Seems to go on quite smooth. Okay, obviously it's going to require a couple of coats. But it's not reacting with it, it's not re-wetting it. It's not sort of causing the paint to retract and not join. It's going down on a nice decent coat, and to be perfectly honest, from experience looking at this, I have no reason to believe that if I put another coat on it, it won't be a nice solid colour. So we can mix paint with it and we can paint it by the looks of it, but we need that to dry first, don't we? And just make sure that it doesn't do anything while it's drying. Now theoretically this stuff is designed to be paintable, so there shouldn't be any problems. Yeah, so we'll see how that dries, and I'll put a little bit more of a coat on it after I've done these bits of gritting, so we can get a better idea. Yeah. So I'm going to crack on with gluing these, and then we'll come back once they're glued and dried and have a look, and then we'll be ready to wrap up, guys. So I'll see you. I'll see you shortly. Right, guys, coating test. Okay, with regards to the paint, it's taking it really well. I could do another coat and get it completely solid, but from experience, looking at how it went down, I have no doubt that this stuff is perfectly paintable, and at the end of the day, it's supposed to be. Yeah, so that's a boon for us, yeah, especially when we're talking about these battle mats and stuff like that. Okay, moving on to gluing. Start off at our personal favourite, PVA. Yeah, it's adhered it really well. Now, it isn't sealed, yeah, so it is a little bit loose on the top, but no worries whatsoever. Really nice. Yeah. Also, I put PVA on there, and there's been no adverse reaction to PVA being put on it, so it's obviously perfectly fine for that. So that's a win. Moving on to two other glues, we've got our super glue. Yeah, now at the bottom there, yeah, I put super glue there, and I put a bit of raw super glue on there just to see how if it reacted. No reaction whatsoever, good adherence. Same with the hot glue at the top. Let's spin it around, there you go. Yeah, bit of raw test straight on the bit, no worries whatsoever, adheres really well, and, you know, same with the clump follower. I reckon I could really rip that off if I tried. Yeah, what you call it, it's the acrylic that's failing there. Not the what you call it, not the clump. But even so, that was really well stuck down. You know, I had to give that a good lever. So I've got no real worries. Yeah, with regards to glues, that's all pretty good, to be perfectly honest. Right, let me get everything together, yeah, and then we can wrap this video up. Okay guys, that wraps up this sort of terrain lab on acrylic filler caulking. Okay, and we've given it a good bash, we've had a good play. Key points, yeah, no warping, it is still soft and flexible, but if you put it in a very smooth layer, yeah, it does harden up. Putting filler in with it, yeah, gives you a really interesting texture. And what I was thinking about this is, yeah, if you were to mix a bit of, see, when you use filler, because it's water based, yeah, when you stipple it and that sort of stuff, it can lose its sharp edges, whereas this hasn't. So that may be an application that's worth exploring, as sort of a terrain glue, which is a mix of filler, grit, a bit of paint, and acrylic caulking, yeah. I think that might be an interesting mix to have a play with. Okay, I do like it with the grit, yeah. It's nice to know that there's no warping issues. More importantly, we can paint it, we can glue it, yeah, we can glue onto it with no issues whatsoever, and that's important, yeah, especially for what we do. Yeah, but I think the key point is this one here. Yeah. This is the core stuff that we're going to be using for when we get round to doing how to do battle mats. Yeah, so a bit more of a play with a few different things, because I want that to be, I don't want to just do a bog standard one, I want to do a really nice one. Yeah, so a little bit more exploring. I do think, yeah, based on material, there's, what you call it, we could use this for paths and all sorts, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, so that is definitely worth a play. I think fundamentally, if we're looking at the terrain lab, yeah, we can use it for basing, but we've got other things that we can do with basing that, you know, we get good results with. Yeah. Above all, this is the stuff that we're going to be playing with battle mats for, and I've got a much better handle on it now. Yeah, and hopefully you guys have as well. Yeah, as always, you know, these terrain labs are about learning, you know, and I've never really played with acrylic caulking properly before, so I know all about it now, and hopefully you know all about it. Yeah, and then we're going to take this knowledge and sort of translate it into more practical applications, and hopefully, you know, in a month or so, we'll sit down and we'll do a big tutorial on doing a massive 6 by 4 foot battle mat, you know, with everything glued on that you can just roll up, because I need one for my Burma board, you know what I mean? So guys, that's it. That's this. Right, obviously like it if you like it. Any comments, anything you can add, any information you can add to this and to help me with my pool of knowledge and to help the community with their pool of knowledge, throw it in the comments. Any questions, you know, throw them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them, guys. Yeah, and then finally, as always, guys, you know, if you really do appreciate these sort of videos, you know, and you want to help me with this channel, and, you know, I can't do this without your help, and I certainly can't expand it without your help. Yeah, and you're not just helping a terrain nutter, you know, to sort of achieve his, you know, go from a little part-time terrain job to a full-time terrain tutor dream job. You're also helping a dad put, you know, a bit of food on the table for the kids. Yeah, it's, you know, I want it to be my living, but I can only do that with your help. So please, guys, I only ask for $1. Yeah, just $1. It's nothing. It's not a coffee, it's not a pint, it's What's $1 get you nowadays? But anyway, yeah, that's all I ask you, yeah, because although it doesn't get you much, it means a massive difference to me because they all add up. So consider the Patreon thing, guys. Oh wait. Yeah, and if you're not into Patreon and you just want to do a one-off, yeah, there's the PayPal link in the description. Whatever you do, yeah, I really do appreciate it, yeah. I can't do this without your support, guys. So thank you, yeah. I'll be back soon with more tutorials. In the meantime, keep experimenting, guys. We'll get there. See you soon. Ta-ra.